UFC 280 is over, and we're going to go over the fallout of the card. So, Mark, for you, did this card live up to the hype? Did you enjoy it as much as you thought you would?
Yeah, I enjoyed it thoroughly and then some as well. Obviously, the time zone over here, I just got up for the main card, but the five main card fights that I did see, I thoroughly enjoyed. What about yourself?
Yeah, I loved it. It was really, really good. I feel like the two main events. It's always such a shame because I always want a war, and they were over a bit too quickly. You know, we only really got 4 rounds for the main events, but that's just me being greedy. So while we talk about the main events, let's start with the main event itself. So we had Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev for the lightweight belt, and Islam Makhachev got a round 2 submission, which I did not expect at all. I really did think that Charles was going to just pull something magical off, but he just got dominated. I was actually shocked how bad Charles Oliveira looked. Do you think that's harsh for me to say, or do you think he looked bad as well?
I wouldn't. It's tough because I wouldn't say he looked bad. It's just how good Islam is. To be honest, it's not. This isn't no longer like a prospect that people say watch out for Islam Makhachev. It's how good he is. The champion does have a name now, and it's Islam Makhachev. And he came out and, I don't want to say ragdolled because he didn't as such, but he did just batter him. He beat him every single place. I was expecting a knockout, but I don't think anyone expected a tap.
No, definitely not. Because, like you were saying before, and on the predictions and the build up to this card, is that Oliveira relies too much on people not coming into his guard. And that was his downfall. But for me, it felt like he didn't have a game plan at all. It felt like when he first came running out with that flying kick, right at the start, I'm like, are you mental? Why are you trying to kick a wrestler? He's going to take your legs and drag you to the floor. And that's pretty much what happened. But Charles did do really well at neutralizing that ground and pound in the first round. He kept him at bay. He kept that submission threat. And, during that first round, I thought, oh, well, it's still anyone's game. And then when the second round came, and it just felt like, what are you doing, Oliveira? He was just throwing wild punches, got caught on the counter, and then got taken down and just got tapped. And I just didn't expect it. And I think it's a bit of a shame, but, it is what it is. And I think a lot of fans are really happy. So for you, Matt, with the idea where people were saying that Charles would have beat Khabib, do you think this kind of answers that question?
Yeah, I think it really does, to be honest with you. And you're right in what you're saying. The first round, Charles really did neutralize an attempt at ground and pound and things. We was talking about it in the live stream, where he'd hooked his arms underneath while he was in his guard. And then, like I said, the second round, he got tagged, dropped to the floor. And that's what we're saying in the live stream. This happens in almost every Charles Oliveira fight. But I mean, I was reading through some of the comments yesterday and things as well, and it is true. I can't remember who it was. Someone had a point saying we don't now just get to disrespect Charles because he lost. There's no shame at all in losing to someone like Islam. There's no shame in losing in the combat sports. Anyway, it's just the way it goes. But now, people are somewhat acting like as if Charles was never a champion, like he hasn't finished Chandler, Gaethje, Poirier. They're acting as if he's just some can that Islam's walked through, as in he'll be back, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Definitely.
After the potential future, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, 100%. It feels like, Charles is still the top contender. He's run through some really good people, but it's just elevated and showed us how good Sambo is as a martial art and what a true high level Islam Makhachev is. And I'm worried now who's going to ever be able to beat him, but I'll talk about that in my what fights to make next video, which will be probably down below. But let's move on to the co-main event. We had Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw, which got finished by TKO in round 2. For those who didn't see it, TJ got taken down almost straight away and dislocated his shoulder, which I was actually quite impressed that he defended against the submissions with one arm. How did you feel about that, Mark, and that sort of skill level that TJ has?
Yeah, I was in look, I'm not really a big TJ fan. I'm not really a fan of TJ, if I'm totally honest. But I mean, you can't help but feel bad for him. He's come back, he's put all the hard work in and everything, and then all of a sudden he comes out fighting with one arm. You see when they got back to the stand-up and he's just trying to parry away with one arm. It looked like Nemesis in Resident Evil 3. Just kind of like just throwing one strike and that's it only, just a big one. But if he connected, it connected. It was really, well, it didn't pay off for him, but it was a smart strategy this week because TJ said that, his arm had dislocated, his shoulder had dislocated, quite numerous times throughout training. And he said, that's why I was trying to throw him off, saying, Aljamain can't stand with me, he can't do this. He was trying to tease him into just a stand-up walk because he knew that his shoulder wouldn't last. Didn't pay off for him, but Aljamain, bottom line, I think he is the luckiest champion that we've ever had.
Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it? And just while we're talking about TJ's injury, do you think it was foolish of him not to pull out of the fight? Like, I don't understand why he didn't. He said that his arm had popped out 20 times during training, and maybe he's exaggerating slightly, but just tell the commission, say, look, I'm injured, and we'll rebook the fight another time. Because I'm sure they could have found a last-minute bantamweight to have a go at Aljo. They'd do it. So why would TJ put himself at risk like that, when he could just get another chance at the belt, 3 months down the line?
I'm really not sure. I mean, maybe it was just like hunger, because obviously he got injured after the Corey Sandhagen fight, and TJ, it's not as if he's a young up-and-comer. He's somewhat of a seasoned vet now. He's been the bantamweight champion a couple of times as well. Maybe he just wanted that trifecta. I'm not sure, but I think this would really put him back, because now I think he's going to have to fight maybe even Jan or something to prove that his self is back up there to that level. And I'm really not so sure, but I mean, Aljamain Sterling, he won the belt by disqualification. He just about won against Petr Yan in a decision earlier this year, and now he has retained his championship via injury. He's the luckiest leader that I think is in the UFC currently.
Yeah, he has been very, very, very lucky. But I wish I had that luck. I wouldn't mind being a UFC champion with millions and millions of dollars. He's a very lucky man. But, it is going to be interesting where these guys kind of fall now, who they're going to fight next and things like that. But talking about who they're going to fight next, we go on to the bantamweight bout of Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley. And the winner of this likely is going to get a title shot. And Sean O'Malley won the fight via a split decision, which a lot of people were really shocked about, us included, when we were watching it live. I was very surprised that Sean had got the win. How did you feel, Mark, at that moment when the decision was announced?
At that very moment, I thought Jan was robbed, like 100%. I was sat thinking, do the judges watch the same fights as what we watch? Or are they just like, are they getting paid by someone or whatever? But my mind changed throughout the day. My mind changed because I was like thinking for a while, like, how can this keep happening? Where they always get it wrong. They constantly get it wrong. It's like, there's things that are certain in life, death, taxes, and UFC judges getting it wrong. It's always going to happen. And then you listen to some analysis about it, Michael Bisping, Daniel Cormier, you go back and watch the fight. Petr Yan, when he had the ground control time, you see how little he actually did with that. Now, I thought the first round was probably Sean's. Second round was, that could have been Petr Yan's, and it could come down to that third round. Obviously, Sean scored that huge knee, which cut Petr Yan open, and it looked like the end scene of Carrie in the octagon. What did you think about the decision in general after coming off the fight?
Well, I was incredibly shocked. I was so surprised that it went to Sean. And Sean looked surprised as well. Because when the fight finished, he was on the stool. Tim Welch was like, consoling him. He's like, don't worry about it, mate. I mean, I don't actually know what he said. I imagine you don't. I'm sure he did.
Don't worry about it, mate.
Don't worry about it, pal. You'll get him next time. I don't imagine he says it with a northern accent, no. But, he was consoling him, and, they both genuinely felt like, oh, we've lost this one. Well, it is what it is. Let's move on. But when that got announced, I was so shocked. I really thought Jan had won. But like you, when I've looked back at it and reflected on that fight, you think, well, actually, damage rules all in UFC. That's how the scoring system works. Damage is key. He outstruck him and he caused more damage. Of course, Jan had all that control time. And like what you said before, he did nothing with it. He just got him down, and Sean did like an Amari roll to get out of it. He was popping straight back up. You know, there was some parts where he couldn't get up, but Jan did nothing with it. He didn't cause any offense. He didn't cause any damage. And that's how he got the fight. That's how he got the win.
The outcome of this, regardless of the decision and whether you agree with it or not, one thing's for certain is that Sean O'Malley has actually proved himself to any doubters, if there's still any doubters around, that he can hang with those. And, you know, like for all the people where they're saying, he just fight cans, you know, he's going to get absolutely steamrolled. He's just shut everyone up. Yeah. And I'm grateful of it, to be honest, because you get sort of tired of disrespect being thrown around just because someone isn't like a top 3 or 5 competitor. Like, it's just proved now, but the only thing is that he can't go back. You can't go back to fighting like relatively unknown names now. Now he's fought Petr Yan. He's going to have his work cut out, which you knew, you know, it's not as if he doesn't know this, you know, like, oh, I'll just fight Petr Yan and then I'm going to go fight someone who's, you know, they fought at Cage Warriors 4 years ago and now they're a retired welder. You know, it just doesn't happen like that. It's gonna be a real test. And this is the thing as fans, it just leaves you wanting the next fight, you know, like instantly straight away. It's like we're never satisfied.
Yeah, it does feel like that. And we never are satisfied. We always want more and more fights. But you're right. Sean O'Malley really, really showed that he can fight with the best of them. You know, he outstruck Petr Yan, which hardly anyone expected, apart from, I think, you and I, like in our predictions all week, we've been saying, do not underestimate Sean O'Malley. He's going to show Petr Yan up. He's going to do something very effective. And he really did. And I do worry about him moving up now in this division because, you know, if Petr Yan can get him down that easily, what is Aljamain Sterling going to do to him? But, you know, we don't go into the analysis too much, but, you know, Petr Yan was coming forward with strikes and that's how he managed to get him down. Whereas I don't think Aljamain will be able to do that moving forward, you know, getting the strikes on Sean. But I do think that's all we've got time for. Thank you for watching. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.